I want to show you what Trump had to say about Zelensky because I thought it was interesting. And I don't want anybody to read into this too much, but how he compares Zelensky, Ukraine, and NATO is fascinating, especially considering how much his administration has really knocked Zelensky over the head again and again and again when talking to the general public about, oh, this guy, he's a businessman, he's going here to get the money, he's really good at getting the money, he's really good at taking our money, and that's basically the only context in which Zelensky is spoken about is his great skill at taking American taxpayer dollars. Where here, he talks about more of Ukraine's general skill as a fighting force.
Anyway, got it. Mr. President, I'm very disappointed in Europe. I'm a big Atlanticist. I'm very disappointed in Europe. I'm glad you're taking the trips out of Germany.
Yep.
However, I'm very encouraged by Zelensky. President Zelensky sent the UAE all their anti-drone stuff. Do you feel better about Zelensky now?
Well, first of all, we have great drone stuff, and we have great anti-drone. So, when he offered the...
It's interesting because Hugh Hewitt didn't mention that there was anti-drone assistance offered by the Ukrainians to the United States, which they also took, according to sources outside of Donald Trump. Not exactly what they took and what they did not take. They're not exactly being very open about, but that they did accept some of that assistance. But the Ukrainians certainly provided help to the UAE. That is outwardly known. The United States did not have all of the munitions or air defense systems necessary to protect all of the Gulf states. So in a way, the Ukrainians are covering a defensive flank for the United States while operating in the region that I don't know of any other party that was going to sign up for that job to deploy hundreds of their own men, certainly while being invaded, in order to defend a country like the United Arab Emirates, which might have a threat to the desalination plants, might have a threat to their oil and gas infrastructure, but there is no Iranian occupation of the UAE that is imminent. Let's be realistic. And instead of Trump just accepting it at face value, even in this clip where it's about to somewhat praise Ukraine, he still has to emphasize, oh, well, we got good drone stuff too. Maybe they should have bought it, they should have bought it from us. You didn't have it available. You didn't have the forces of it. I mean, the Ukrainians did, you did. I don't know what you want to say. Plus they have a lot more experience. Either way, it's almost like, wait a second, number one, we're number one. But that's Trump.
Well, first of all, we have great drone stuff, and we have great anti-drone. So, when he offered the, he's a tricky person. He's a tricky guy, and we want to get a settlement. And, they are losing territory, but it's at a big cost to Russia and to them. And I like Zelensky. I've always sort of gotten along with him, other than the one moment in the White House, which I thought was a little aggressive on his behalf, the Oval Office. That I'm sure you perhaps remember.
But I will the Vice President.
Look, Biden gave him $350 billion worth of money and equipment and everything else, which is...
Okay, a few things here. Tricky guy. Ooh, he's tricky. I think he's been pretty open and direct about where their lines are. Tricky in the idea that you can't get him to concede to abandoning territory that the Russians don't currently occupy. That would mean the evacuations of hundreds of thousands more people. I mean, have enough Ukrainians been displaced? Either way, when he says tricky, where does the trickiness come in? Is it in his inability to act like the hand puppet that many people describe the Ukrainians as to the United States, only to find out that the Ukrainians are actually acting in their own national self-interest, and they see the United States as a partner to do that, but that doesn't mean if that partner does not agree with that end goal, that they will not break with them, which they did. And so that 24-hour peace deal that would either be getting the Russians to submit, which they didn't do, so he turned to getting the Ukrainians to submit, which they wouldn't do, and then the war has dragged on since then, and this idea of an imminent cessation of hostilities because of a 24-hour peace deal, or a slightly less imminent peace deal as the Ukrainians run out of funds or the United States surges funds to the Ukrainians, the Russians are the problem. None of that came around. So, even on the campaign trail, when it comes to what he was offering as the deal, that switched up once he got in there. To me, is that tricky? But I don't know, tricky. Tricky. Also, 350 billion. He just keeps increasing the number. I said this recently, and I want to repeat it. He sounds like an auctioneer when he talks about the budget that we've sent over. What we've actually sent over is probably closer to roughly 100 billion. To, if you're being very generous in your definitions, maybe you can like move it up to like somewhere closer to 150. Again, this is ignoring the fact that, manufacturing costs from something made in 1970 has changed over the last years. And this is like the furthest stretches by which one could say we have assisted Ukraine. The furthest stretches. I mean, you can get somewhere close to like 125, 130 billion. You're getting somewhere in that range. What I saw before was 200 billion. I was like, okay, that's not exactly accurate. Then it was 250 billion. And it was 300 billion. And he stuck with 300 billion as the big number. I assumed he heard that number. I was like, well, that's big. That's really big. But then, in comparison, I mean, like, how large a number is relative to the size of the other numbers involved. And if he's asking for over $200 billion with a $1.5 trillion military budget, all of a sudden, even his inflated number of 300 billion doesn't seem that large, especially if you're continuing to increase the budget for the war against Iran. So that put him in a tricky position. So what did he do? He did what any great marketer would do. Just fudge the numbers a little bit. 300 billion, sorry. Excuse me, there was some phlegm in my throat. 350 billion is the new number. Now, if we were taking Trump seriously, if we were considering Trump like a serious president, and when I say a serious president, I don't mean a president you have to like. I don't mean a president that's correct on the issues. I mean a president that when he goes and he speaks before the press, he's not yelling fake news or you're a loser or like he is gonna, if he dodges a question, he dodges a question like a politician. Now, if we were taking him seriously, that would mean between him getting inaugurated and today, somehow another $50 billion was sent to Ukraine under his watch. Mind you, the only aid that has been given to Ukraine since he's entered office is the 400 million that was tied up till very recently after Congress approved it, not Trump. There is still some drawdown authority that they're just sitting on from the Biden admin, and they've been sitting on it. Hoping I assume that will produce some outcome. 350 billion, the new number. We just keep increasing it every time. Keep increasing it, keep making the number bigger, and therefore the rest of his numbers won't seem as big by comparison.
$1 billion worth of money and equipment and everything else, which is ridiculous that he did that, but he did it. But I sell them equipment, full course. We sell it to the European Union. We sell it to NATO, basically, and they give it out. I will say this: they fight, because whether the equipment's great or less than great, they are able to fight. And
they're better than any of our NATO allies.
Big monster. They've held it back for for a long
they're
time.
better than anybody in Europe in this fight. At least they're helping.
Well, Europe has been very disappointing, and one of the things that came out of our skirmish with Iran, I think, is that NATO wasn't there for us. We spend trillions of dollars over a relatively short period of time on NATO. There was a time before I got here, we were paying for 100% the cost of NATO, not 80, not 50. We were paying for 100%. Now,
okay. Briefly, before I get into the new points, I do just want to say the idea that in retrospect, we're supposed to still look at that meeting between Zelensky and J.D. Vance as aggressive on the part of Zelensky, not on the part of J.D. Vance saying, why haven't you said thank you? Why haven't you said thank you? Mind you, in that meeting, Zelensky said thank you at the very start. But then the new argument, because I've had this discussion with Trumpers before, they say, well, he didn't say thank you to each individual member involved. I don't know. He says thank you to America. He thanks the country. I didn't know he had to also personally get on his hands and knees and like pray at the altar of Donald J. Trump instead of acting like a normal politician when he visits a country. And he's like, maybe that's the problem with Zelensky. He treated the United States like a country and not like a plutocracy. Maybe that was the problem, that he came in and he thanked the United States, but he didn't thank Fred Trump for having the motion in the bedroom to produce such an offspring from the heavens themselves. Someone that must have been made by virgin birth. It was so ridiculous. I mean, even going back and looking at the meeting, I'm pretty sure we still have, I think we still have a Zelensky quote here actually from that meeting that shows that in the areas that Zelensky, the aggression that he did show, quote unquote aggression, was just him telling the United States what would end up to be true in their upcoming war in the Middle East against the Iranians, as they face a drone threat that they had not faced before.
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are not strong...
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military?
We have problems.
And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You
God bless. You will not have war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. Remember this.
I'm not
you're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards.
Cards.
Right now, you don't.
Yeah,
you're playing cards.
Mr. President.
You're playing cards.
Serious.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. It's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once?
A lot of times.
No, in this
even
entire
today,
meeting, you said thank you.
Even today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
I mean, look, it goes on and on and on. I think 2 minutes is enough to give people a refresh memory. Every once in a while, I'm going to play that clip to refresh everybody's memory about how humiliating that was for our country, for the United States. Because it is humiliating to see our president and vice president act like such immature children in front of the entire world. When, I mean, Zelensky was about to give Trump like a U6 championship belt. The best boxer in the world. Like one of the best boxers of this era, likely the best heavyweight of this era. I mean, I don't want to get into debates about it, but it's true. And you're wrong if you disagree as a boxing fanatic. And you're looking at this, and he's going to give that to you. He thanked you at the start. He's insulting you. By the way, after that meeting, they never got to present the belt because the meeting basically just shut down after that point. There was supposed to be a period where they did that. But instead, they gave the belt to him anyway. Trump kept it and then never said anything about it. So he just got that belt in some drawer somewhere, just laying around. Anyway, last two things I want to say about this. Number one, the Hugh Hewitt emphasis on better than NATO. Better than NATO. The Ukrainians are better than NATO. They fight. They put in an effort. I don't know how much of this is just around the idea that the Ukrainians are spending the vast majority of their budget on military expenses, defending themselves, and the way this government thinks about how someone's contributing to defense is how much money you actually contribute to the defense budget and downstream defense companies, right? If sometimes that seems to be the only way by which this administration measures if a country is properly defending itself. Mind you, they could spend all their money on the most expensive, worthless gadgets on the planet and still meet the 5% threshold, or cut the 5% threshold in half, spend 2.5%, but spend it in such a cost-effective way and in groups with other countries. You know, making bulk purchases, which reduce the per item cost, which might not be as glorious for the defense contractor, but is going to be much better for the bottom dollar of the actual national body, of the state that actually has to manage that budget. But instead of talking about that, he just says the Ukrainians fight and they don't. You know, NATO's not there in a way. Hugh Hewitt is emphasizing this. I think this is his attempt to try to put that, you know, the pro-Ukraine worm in his head. Like, hey, he's helping in the Middle East. Hey, you know, the Ukrainians fight. Do the Europeans fight? I mean, the Ukrainians fight. At least they're putting in an effort. Boo Europe. Yay, Ukraine. Boo Europe. Yay, Ukraine. That's the vibe I'm getting off of this host that he's trying to, like, put on to Trump. And Trump runs with it for a bit. He tries to, like, say, oh, you know, I like Zelensky, X, Y, and Z. But he'll bash him for political purposes. He'll have that, like, that PR disembowelment of a meeting that he had with Zelensky and JD and the rest of them. He'll cut off this, he'll cut off that. He'll engage in a pressure campaign that's directly undermining his country. But he likes Zelensky. The other thing that was interesting is not just it was better than NATO, but then he went and pivoted this into his old talking point of NATO not being there, right? And think about this from Hugh Hewitt's perspective. We're talking about Ukrainians moving drones to the Middle East. He's there. He's trying to say he's there. The Ukrainians are there. They want to be there with the United States. They were with us all the way back during the Iraq invasion, and they're with us today. The Ukrainians are there. That seems to be the message that he's going into. And instead of Trump really running with that, he instead pivots into NATO's not there. Whether the Ukrainians are there, they're not bombing Iran. They're defending like oil and gas infrastructure in places like UAE, but they're still in the region doing something, freeing up resources for the United States that can then be moved elsewhere. He still pivots it into an idea that NATO is not in the Middle East. Why isn't Germany helping us bomb Iran? Why isn't France helping us bomb Iran or reopen the Strait by force or X, Y, and Z? That's what he pivots into, and that NATO's not there, and then he does NATO bashing. Now, from Trump's perspective, as somebody who thinks, you know, within Trump world and not much outside of Trump world, I can see the logic that he's operating under. I want Europe to do what I say. I want them to buy our guns. I want to bomb Iran. I want them to join in bombing Iran, buying our guns, so then they can go buy more of our guns. Very good business strategy for the United States. And hey, maybe if they buy enough of our guns and they do enough, then maybe we'll throw a few more bones in like Europe's direction. Instead, we got a 5,000 troop withdrawal, a 5,000 soldier troop withdrawal from Germany that was announced so quickly and so haphazardly that I find it next to impossible that there was a thorough review coordinated by Congress. I know there wasn't one coordinated by Congress, and I don't believe there was a thorough review. Now, in a historical context, this makes no sense. NATO is a defensive alliance. That's the aspect of NATO that is the easiest to sell and that most people believe in, whether or not you liked every mission that NATO's gotten involved in. And the idea that, hey, we're going to stop all these countries from being invaded because no one would be so stupid to go to war with all of Europe and the United States. That'd be dumb. That'd be really dumb. So don't do it. And NATO, under that Article 4 to Article 5 provision, has been successful in achieving that goal. And that is its main goal. NATO was not there for the United Kingdom when the Falklands Islands was invaded by the Argentine junta back in the day during the Thatcher government. Thatcher had to deploy her own, forces, her own navy, her own aircraft carrier, had to do a whole British-led operation to take back the Falkland Islands with no participation from NATO, no involvement from NATO states, no support from the United States, because the United States wanted to maintain its relationship with the Argentine government, and so it said, no, NATO defense only covers North America and Europe. Well, the German leader or the British leader, if they wanted to, and if they, cared about that history, even though they knew it would probably come with more troop withdrawals and anger and the idea of correcting the U.S. president, they could say, Iran is not in North America, it is not in Europe, and you started the bombing. So whether it comes to the self-defense principle of NATO, or whether it comes to the territorial boundaries upon which it should be supporting, and what the United States' historic position has been, I think that there's a good defense against European involvement. And certainly within the bounds of what NATO is supposed to stand for. Now, for somebody, if their goal is to reopen the strait immediately or to bring an immediate end to the Iranian atomic weapons program by force, they might not be happy with that. But that and NATO are very, very different objectives. Okay, I think the Senate candidate is ready for us.